Hello, viewers, and welcome to our very first episode of the Gender Tech podcast series, where we will be talking about everything around gender and technology and how women have been able to use technology for good to better their lives. Today on set, I have one amazing guest that took me quite a lot to hunt down. She's a very pretty woman, and she'll introduce herself and tell us more about her experience with technology. You're welcome.
First of all, congratulations on setting up this podcast. I think it's going to be very impactful for young girls and women out there that have questions about technology. My name is Nadia Aya. I work as a program manager by day, and by night, or when I close my laptop, what I do, I have a podcast as well called Purely Candid that I run with a friend of mine. And I also wear many hats. I do many other things. I like music, I like food, I don't want to say too much about myself. I think that is enough of a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nadia, tell us about your first experience. Technology people say it's a in thing right now,
Yes.
but there is someone out there who has never interfaced with technology.
Yes.
As growing up as an African woman, when was the first time you ever touched, maybe interfaced with a digital device?
Okay. I would say my first experience would be a mobile phone back in the 90s, early 90s, I remember. I don't know when the
So you were the
phones first
plant
came
kids of
to,
those days.
not necessarily planned kid, it was my dad's phone.
Okay.
So I remember it had this antenna thingy. And back then I used to help him load airtime on it. Or it was, I don't know how the phones used to work back then. I remember I used to just load for him the airtime because he
The
had,
scratch cards.
yeah, his eyes were not the best. So being young, of course, such things excite you. Yeah, that was my first experience or my first interaction with technology. But I think even before that, we had the analog phones, those phones that were the corded phones, not the cordless, the phones that had a line, a landline, let me say, sort of. So I grew up seeing those kind of phones, but when the mobile phones came in, that for me was an eye-opening kind of innovation because it was small, portable, had a battery, it had an antenna, it looked so cool. Yeah, then I remember also still in late primary, my foster parents had computers in their office. So I used to, one of my tasks, one of my chores at home was to go and power on the computer. So I'd wake up like at about 7 before they go into the office at 8.
How old were you?
I think I was in P5, about 10.
10.
Yeah. I would have to go and power on the computer. So they'll tell you have to put on this switch and then this switch. So like the main switch from the wall and then on the CPU. I think back then they were called CPUs, right?
Yes.
That big thing.
Yes.
Yes. So I go and turn on the computer, and that's all I would do. Turn on the computer, and then you hear that kind of noise it makes. You know, okay, now it's coming on. Now I can leave. But of course, as a young kid, you're curious. You want to touch other things. You want to look at the keyboard. You want to look at the screen. It was all such a mystery because we never used to interact with computers. Back then, at least, we never used to interact with computers. I think those were my first experiences with technology as a young girl growing up in Uganda.
Yeah, I'm so curious to know when when you were tasked to power on the computers, like
Yeah.
what was running on in your mind?
Curiosity, but of course fear of like if I mess up with anything, someone may beat me because you were told do not touch anything else. Yours is just to put it on. If you hear it making noise and it's coming on, leave it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but of course, as a kid, you're very curious. I touch the keyboard. I didn't do anything with it. Just looking at it and touching it and wondering what else is there and what does it do. Yeah.
Wow. Because I do believe there are other kids out there right now who are about 10 or 15 who've
Yeah.
actually never interfaced or touched
True. True.
a smartphone or
Yeah.
a computer. So that was really
Yeah, I think in
your
our time that
privilege.
was something that was actually privilege, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. I don't think many people even had access to like even a mobile phone.
Yeah.
It was really for the few. Actually, mobile phones in Uganda were for the rich people back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were the rich people
I
then.
happened to be maybe near someone that was rich. Yes.
Yeah. So I still want to find out when you would power on the computer,
Yes.
was it, were your parents, foster parents using it for maybe
It was for
typing
work.
or?
Yeah, so I think they used it for work. I don't know what used to happen then. Of course, as a child, you would wonder what do adults do when they go to their offices. Things would go through your mind, but you would never know. Yeah, but I remember when I went to high school, of course, one of the things on our syllabus in Uganda was computer studies or ICT
Yeah.
in high school. Maybe like from senior 2, senior 3. I'm not so sure. That was my now personal interaction with the computer, where I got to see what happens on the screen, not just looking at the machine on the outside, but now
But
to
actually
see,
interfacing
yes,
with it.
interfacing with it, to see the lights. This is how you power it on. This is the start. You know how Microsoft devices have. I mean, their software.
Yeah.
The start. This is how you get Microsoft Word. Of course, growing up, I mean, in school, we also got very, very basic knowledge about it. Remember, we used to be told to carry floppy disks. What are floppy disks even? Do they even still exist? Kids will never know what that stuff
They
is.
wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah, but we used to carry that stuff to school as one of the school requirements. Buy a floppy disk, come with it to the computer lab for your classes,
For saving your work.
for saving
Then
your
we didn't
work.
have flash disks and
Yes, we didn't have flash
USB.
disks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it also was a good experience for us, mostly those who never had a chance to play on the computer or even experience it or explore it growing up. Um, I think the thing that we learned the most was Microsoft Word
Yeah.
and maybe some commands like Control S, Control A, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I relate because in my high school we had like 7 computers. It was in a secret room, actually sacred room,
Yeah.
where people do go in shifts.
Yeah.
And when the moment you enter the room, you're not allowed to touch anything
Yeah.
unless you're told to do so. So computers then were really scarce.
Yeah.
And for you to have to go home and say you've been studying computer, it was really a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I even remember in school, in high school, the ratio of students that would be on one computer was quite high. Maybe you'd be like 5 or about 6 people to one computer. And maybe the person that is luckiest to be on it is the one that gets to touch.
To touch, yeah.
Yeah.
And learn more.
And learn. So even the exams that we did, much as we're supposed to do practical examinations, it was written. So imagine they ask you what does Control S mean. You have to answer. You'd have to describe what the icons mean. That was very, very. I mean, it was not how you would actually study computer or even examine it for that matter.
How was it for you as a lady to access and actually interface with these computers?
Yeah, I remember access was a challenge. Obviously, not everyone learns at the same pace. So, if, for instance, one person has more hands-on experience, they would be at an advantage, maybe in how they understand the computer or even how they learn. That was obviously a challenge, but I don't remember necessarily having challenges as a woman. But usually in school, boys are the bullies. They know how to. If you're fighting for the space on the computer, obviously the boys will beat you to it. Yeah, but I don't remember any particular incident where I felt that I wasn't given a chance as a girl because I was in a mixed school, and in a mixed school, it is really about everyone gets to experience something the same way.
I think you guys were lucky
Yeah.
because for us, when they say the first 10 students need to, it's time for your computer classes, people
Yeah.
would literally run
You run, yes.
to the computer lab. So the first person to reach gets access to
Yeah.
sit on the computer, and then the rest, the some of us who wouldn't, when you're
Who are
laid down
not
in a
fit.
mixed school running,
Yes.
it would be very awkward to see
Mostly
yourself
for
run.
girls, right?
Yeah, for girls. So most of us were really cut out from sitting and facing the computer.
Yeah.
And I think that was a challenge then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. Yeah, so I remember when I finished my A levels and going on to university, my brother gifted me my very first mobile phone. It was a Katochi. I don't know if it was called a Katochi back then, but like those small Nokias that used to
Is it the
exist.
famous 3310?
I think so, yes. That was my first phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really basic phone, but I mean, back then, that's what we had. You could at least make calls. You could access certain basic things that you need
Yeah.
as a young person. So when I joined university, at least I had a phone, and I also remember from university as well. That's when we got the exposure to the internet, We learned about email addresses. Of course, our skills of computer slightly went up because at university you had to type your coursework. Of course, we never had laptops. Most of us never had computers, but either way, you'd have to find a way to do your coursework. Whether you're going to borrow or sit in a cafe to type your work, that was what we had to do to survive.
I think cafes then were the in thing.
They were the in thing,
Like
yes.
every campus, every university
Yes.
had at least more than 5 to 7 cafes.
So you pay like 500 shillings or 1,000 shillings for an hour.
And you'd be timed.
Yes, and to type your work. So if you're typing at this speed, imagine
That
how
means-
much money you'd have to pay. Yeah.
Wow. There's a time when I was at the university.
Yes.
So we were doing Ubuntu. It's one of those programming languages. And then we had to, when you're submitting your coursework, there's a timer. So just picture this. You do not have a computer. You're supposed to submit in your work online. And it's a timer. So if you do not submit your work within that particular time,
Yeah.
you get locked out and your work cannot get submitted.
Yeah.
So we went to a computer center. We did our work, time for submissions. The internet then was also very slow. And, it keeps buffering, then power goes on and off. It was really a tough time for students then.
Yeah. Did you fail?
I did not fail, but I didn't get good marks because the other parts of the course unit covered this
Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was quite an experience for starters then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think generally in campus access was a challenge because you even realize that some coursework you had to do research online. Of course, not every book you would want was in the library, and also some information is much easier to get through the internet.
Yeah.
So you'd realize that you were always kind of slacking.
And we
on
were also
certain
broke
things.
then.
Very broke. So imagine having to spend 2,000 shillings in an internet cafe.
And that would be
Yeah,
lunch
that's
for
your
2
lunch.
days.
Yeah, that's a proper Rolex.
Yeah, for 2 days.
Yeah.
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 So looking at how from the first time you interfaced with a computer or a tech device, how
Yes.
has it evolved in your own perspective?
I think the evolution has been rapid. I can't imagine what computers looked like then, even just from the physical look, but also to the software that you would find. I don't know how many Microsoft versions have come up since then. Now we're on Microsoft, I don't know what. Yeah, and if you hadn't been part of that journey, you may not even realize that all these changes we have actually passed through them. But also from a user perspective, it's a better experience than what we had before. Computers were very slow back then. Now they are much faster, much more efficient. The internet is also much faster. We have a lot of options on where we can get information. I think it's been a good experience. Also, if I look at how it was, but I can imagine someone who hasn't interacted with the computer, who has not had any prior experience, how hard it will be for them to even understand these platforms. Mostly at our age, I think the younger people kind of have it easy in terms of they kind of see these things. They have phones. They can Google. It's not so much of a mystery to them.
Yeah, the young kids of now can't
Yeah.
really relate with what we went through.
They
back
can't
then.
relate. Yes.
Yeah.
But also, I think also most schools now have at least a laptop. If you're to look at the prices of computers back then and how much they cost right now, I think there's also a big difference in pricing.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like now there's hope for someone who had no experience, no exposure, compared to back then where it was really for selected few people who could actually have access to some of these things. Me, I look at it also from the side of impact and how with the internet or with access to that kind of information, as a woman, you have first of all more opportunities for work, for jobs. If you do not have any computer literacy or digital skills, you're going to find it so hard to enter a workplace. Most of the jobs, even the basic jobs like being in a restaurant, you need to at least know how to navigate some of these digital tools.
Yeah, because most payments are no longer cash.
Yes.
People use their cards. So if you
Yes.
cannot use the machine, then it's...
Yeah, even just these things of booking in an order, you see most restaurants have like a tab that they book in orders, at least most modern restaurants, if you look at those that actually can pay you some decent money. Yeah, so I feel like internet, and not just internet, but technology generally, enables someone to have more opportunities if you use it in the right way. Yeah, I also look at the information divide that we see a lot now. What you know can also get you further. If you operate from a point of ignorance, you can only think so much ahead. So I feel like the information that we are able to access now, thanks to technology, helps us to make better decisions for our lives. Even for women, just having an app that you can track your period on, that alone is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
It can help you either not get pregnant or have an unplanned pregnancy. I think from that perspective, there is so much potential. And for someone who doesn't have exposure to it, it can be also a hindrance for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about someone who doesn't have exposure. I've actually personally interfaced with because our work, the work that we do at Gender Tech,
Yeah.
we the main thing is to empower women to
Yes.
embrace the usage of technology for good. And we've interfaced with women who cannot actually open, who do not know if they call it touch. The others who don't even know how to open the phone,
Yeah.
who do not know that WhatsApp exists.
Yeah.
Yet it's what people use for communication at the moment. Others don't even know that you can send an email or write a message or like use tech to make your life better.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago we were training women involved in the informal sector on how they could also use technology, because for people to see what you're doing, what you're selling, you
Yeah.
need to put it out there. And the
Exactly.
best way to put it is to use tech tools and tech applications.
Yeah.
And it's so absurd that our women, our mothers, who
Yeah.
actually run the economy, the work
Yes,
that they
yes.
do run the economy, do not know and do not have any basic information on technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think COVID was the best example of that, because people who at least had a smartphone, or you have WhatsApp and you can take a picture of your product, were able to at least make some money.
Yeah.
But now, if you do not have even that basic knowledge of maybe like digital marketing, or I can just take a picture, customer may see it and then they can buy.
Yeah.
So even beyond communication, like you said, is also access to different services. Like also marketing is a very important aspect. There are also other tech-enabled devices or platforms that someone can also use to access bigger markets, not just in Uganda locally, but
Yeah.
also beyond. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have now is also the internet. You may have the device, but you cannot afford to buy the data
Yeah, because it's
that connects
costly.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and especially for the mothers, you start looking at your priorities. Should I buy data
or you buy
or should I
diapers.
buy food?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
that also sort of puts us in a very tough position as mothers.
Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to mention was the fact that it never stops evolving. Every day there's something new. Every year there's something new. Even the apps that you have on your phone keep updating every single year. So it never stops evolving. So even as someone that maybe you have exposure, doesn't mean that you stop learning. You also have to keep learning, keep getting up to date with the new trends. Sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming. It's like, when do we stop?
Yeah.
You cannot tell me to be on all these platforms. I don't know. Now, I don't know. There's TikTok, there's this, there's that. That's social media, but it's also part of technology.
Yeah.
It keeps people updated with what's happening in the world. So in some cases it can be a bad thing, because you feel you cannot keep up with every single thing happening.
It's also time consuming.
It's time consuming, yes.
You know?
So you also wonder, like, if we didn't have to keep up with all these trends, even just jobs.
Yeah.
Some of us in our jobs, we wonder if in the next 5 or 10 years we shall be able to have employment, because technology is now coming at a very high rate that
To take over your jobs.
take over some jobs. Yes, you cannot even. Now we have AI. That's the new in thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people who are doing some, I would say, repeat tasks, may have to rethink what they will do with their careers in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about how the usage of these platforms like TikTok and
Yeah.
WhatsApp and Instagram take up your time. There's a time I was in bed,
Yeah.
so I started to scroll through TikTok. TikTok is, I don't know how to phrase it, but there's a way
addictive.
it lures you to keep wanting more.
Yeah.
And each clip that you click, each clip that comes up is better than the previous
Yeah.
one. So the urge to watch more comes
Yeah.
in. So before you know it, you've killed better time of your life into just watching the TikTok videos,
Yeah.
and yet you could have used such time for
Something
some
productive.
valuable, doing something really productive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true what you mentioned. Mostly for young people, I don't think everyone who is on TikTok knows even how to use Microsoft Word or like some very basic computer functions. So much as they are good platforms, or they can be good, some people make money off TikTok. You also have to look at the fact that as a person, what skills do you have that can make you earn a living? You can use your phone for TikTok, but you can also use your phone to learn some new skills.
Yeah.
I remember when I was starting up my podcast, I learned a lot of things from the internet. Just like what it takes to open a YouTube channel, what you must know, how to market, like all those things I learned online. So imagine if I was spending all that time on TikTok, I could use the same time to learn a new skill or, learn a new trade. There's so much you can use the internet for apart from social media.
Yeah.
I think people also need to take that other side of it and use it for good, not
Yeah.
just for good vibes and
Yeah.
catching a good moment.
And especially women, really,
Yeah.
there are very many opportunities that we can get online.
Yeah.
There are others who are actually working remotely.
Yes.
You can get a remote job. People do book reviews online.
Yes.
You do not have to be in any office. All you have
Yes.
to do is get a book online, read it,
Yeah.
review, you submit, and you get paid.
Yeah, even learning how to cook, learning how to knit, learning even mechanics, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it takes also the interest to be able to explore what is out there that you can use to better yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we come to a close, what would you tell maybe a woman who is out there, a viewer who is out there who has never interfaced with a computer, but they do have the urge? Actually they say, "Akemoduong ento guvu pere." You have the urge to do it, but you want to do it, but you don't have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
What would you tell such a person?
One I would say is it can seem a bit scary from the outside, but just like anything else, if you can read, you can navigate a computer. At least that's what I think. If someone can read English, I think it may be hard if you don't know how to read English. I will not lie to you; it may be very hard. But if you can read English, you can use a computer. Yeah, it's a matter of having the interest to learn and asking for help. There are different platforms, I think, like yours, like you mentioned. You do teach women and girls on how to learn like very basic computer skills or literacy, digital skills. Yeah, get into a place that you can learn from, but also have the interest. Interest is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Be curious enough to know what can I benefit from this thing. Don't look at the challenge of learning it, but what can it add? What value can it add to my life? Can I learn a new skill that can pay my bills? If yes, then learn something from there. But also for those who already know how to use these platforms, take advantage of things that can actually add value to you. Don't only focus on the TikToks, on taking selfies, on the filters of Snapchat. You can do so much more with your phone. I learned a lot of things from YouTube. Up to now, actually, even when I went for my masters, I would take courses on YouTube that would help me in my schoolwork. Just even like basic stuff. If I want to cook, I can just go look up a recipe.
Yeah.
It helps you like on the everyday basis.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should learn to adopt and to utilize all these other platforms that we can learn from, not just for TikTok. TikTok is also very nice. I really like it. I don't have it on my phone, but I see people posting their TikToks, and
Yeah.
some of them are really creative.
Yes.
Actually, creativity is one of the things that you can learn from the internet. You can also see what happens beyond your country. I feel like for people who are out there, that's one of the ways you can also learn like different cultures. If you haven't traveled, I haven't traveled much, but I've seen a lot of things from the internet at least that have taught me, okay, in China, it's what happens in China. Uganda, they do these things like that. Yeah. I also think for women, like I mentioned earlier, there are different ways that social media, internet can help you. If you have an app on your phone that tracks your period, you're able to plan better your days of, safe days, unsafe days. And even just know when your period is coming. That's also a very good thing for a woman to have in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, without having to maybe look at the moon, I don't know, moon beads,
Wait for the
wait
signs.
for the
That
signs,
pimple
the
that
pimples, and you
pops.
say, okay, now I'm about to start bleeding. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for men, I would say if you have a child, a young girl, encourage her to learn some of the good things on the internet. You don't know what kind of barriers you'll be breaking. Many women nowadays are able to access good jobs, not even just in Uganda, but even beyond because of the internet
Yeah.
or even because of their digital literacy skills. So I would say encourage them in a good way to embrace the use of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also shouldn't be passive
Yes.
consumers of tech. We need to
Yes.
be active and participate.
True.
We talked about TikTok. It's a good platform. It's time consuming, yes, but I wish we could also participate
Yeah.
in creating these videos because people have made a lot of money
Yeah.
off creating those funny videos.
Mostly the young people, actually.
Yeah.
There's a way they make a lot of money
Yeah.
from these platforms.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the most important thing when you master your craft, let's say your videos are going to focus on maybe knitting or crocheting or maybe tailoring, you go along that line, and I'm sure you gain followers and you'll be able to monetize your page
Exactly,
at some
yes.
point.
I think that's a very important factor. The fact you can actually make money
Yeah.
while you're on these platforms, mostly
Yeah.
like TikTok, Instagram, whatever.
So let's just don't be a passive consumer of tech. Be
Yeah.
an active one and participate in its evolution.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure 5, 10 years from now, if you are not an active consumer of technology, you will definitely be left out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I also appreciate the work that you do as Gender Tech Initiative. I'm supporting young girls and women to access digital skills for betterment of their lives. As we close, I'd just like to highlight the fact that I know there are a lot of challenges in accessing internet as Ugandans. We have data costs are up the roof, and not everyone even has access to a smartphone to start with. But for those that do, try to use it as much as possible to better your life. There are ways you can make money online. There are ways you can learn skills that can better your life in terms of getting a good job that pays your bills, but also not just in terms of getting job, but also productivity can be increased if you leverage technology for the right things. So I'd want to advise maybe any young girl out there or a young woman out there to break that barrier and learn as much as possible as you can. I know it keeps evolving day in and day out, but in as much as you can, learn a new skill that will help you to take yourself further.
Thank you so much, Miss Nadia, for coming. I really had a great time learning from you, especially from your experience, your first time experience, to interact with the computer, and it was quite a story. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching this up to the end. We'll post this podcast on YouTube, on TikTok. It's going to be on Instagram, on Facebook. So be sure to follow us at the Gender Tech Podcast on all the sites.